20 years ago, a seed was planted and cared for. We painstakingly nurtured it and weathered it against adversity until one day it blossomed and the fruits of our labor began to show. Today, millions have learned, shared, and been inspired by what our community has produced. We proudly serve 21 million users from 204 countries in 2019. Through our 85,000 technical articles, code samples, and videos, our 450,000 forum questions, and our highly anticipated conferences and events featuring keynotes, panels, and live streams with industry experts and influencers. We recognize and reward members for their dedication to the community. Through content contributions and mentorship, we ranked number 2,620 in the world, with a reach of millions across our social media channels. Thanks to you, our global community of software and data developers grows stronger each day. For more information, visit us at csharpcorner.com.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of Growth Mindset Show. This show is every Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern. My name is Mahesh Chand. I'm founder of C# Corner. We bring this show to talk about growth, mostly around software developers. If you are joining us first time, welcome to the show. If you are a regular audience of our show, welcome back to the show. As some of you already know, excuse me, this show is all about you. So we want to make sure feel free to post any kind of questions you have in comments. There's a comment section. Thank you for watching us. Looks like people are joining us from different parts of the world. I see people joining from India, joining from US, Europe, even Canada. Welcome to the show. Feel free to post your questions and comments. The purpose of this show is make sure we answer your questions. And each show I have guests on the show, and we talk about different topics. If you are first time joining Growth Mindset Show, our goal with the show is to help software developers understand other parts of the businesses and grow to the next level. And today we have two special guests, and our focus today is on jobs, hiring, recruiting, and how COVID has changed in the entire IT sector. How people now working remotely, how jobs are going to be in future, and how we are going to work from home. So it's going to be a very different compared to the last several years, and how industry has changed from working at office to working from home now. If you are new to C# Corner, C# Corner is an online community of several million developers. If you are not a member, please go check it out, c-sharpcorner.com. Join us, become a member. There's a lot of benefits of being a member, and mostly around exposure. If you are a part of C# Corner MVP program, we bring you on live shows and we promote you on social media. Definitely check us out on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and all kind of social media platforms. So today, let's bring our guests. And today, our guests are Joe and Ted. They work for a large corporation, and both are technical background. So let's start introducing our guests. Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Ted. How are you?
Great. You weren't kidding, Ted. It is dark in your office.
That's what happens when you live in Seattle and you do a 7 a.m. webcast. So I blame you, Joe Guadagno.
Yes.
So, guys, welcome to the show. Ted, welcome to the show. Joe is our frequent guest on the show. You are here first time. Welcome to the show. So the growth mindset is I am really, glad you are here with us today. I know it's early in Seattle, and I can imagine Kids maybe still be sleeping if you have kids.
Well, I haven't gone to sleep yet, so we're all good.
Okay, there you go. So yeah, just tell us a little bit about where you guys joining us from and how it's COVID situation there.
You go first, Ted.
Okay. Hi, my name's Ted Neward. I live in Seattle, Washington. Actually, I live in Redmond, Washington, about 10 minutes from the Microsoft campus, from the heart of the beast. As the shirt implies, both Joe and I work for Quicken Loans within the technology group, which is known as Rocket Technology. And here in Seattle, we're still, we went back to I won't say a complete lockdown. Restaurants can still operate and stuff to do takeaway, but there is no indoor seating. There is outdoor seating as long as any sort of tent enclosure isn't completely enclosed. There has to be at least one open wall, if I understand it correctly. And we're in that until, what did I just see? I think early January is what the governor's latest orders have stipulated. So, we're definitely not clear of it. We've seen the state of Washington has seen a lot of spike in cases, particularly outside the city of Seattle. But for the most part, when you go out and wander the streets and whatnot, you see people wearing masks. I mean, it's most people here understand the point of a mask and are generally pretty cool with it. So that's our current state of being. So.
And then you have the exact opposite of that.
I wasn't going to be the one to say that some of us live in red states and some of us live in blue states.
Yeah, well, luckily we're turning more one color than the other lately. But we still have some things to get rid of. So my name's Joe Guadagno. Most people call me Joe G, amongst other things that I won't share on a live show. But Ted knows some of those other nicknames as well as Mahesh. I am from Phoenix, Arizona in the U.S., so a little bit further south, but we're still 2 hours different. We're at 8 o'clock right now. Our situation is a little bit different. So we have a governor in our state that believes that the economy and dollars are more important. So everything is pretty much open. He's left it up to the local counties. So for those not familiar with the U.S. government, we have the country itself, then we have states, then within the states, there's usually cities and counties. So our governor, who's usually in charge of the whole state, left it up to the locals to figure out what they want, because as he puts it, the situation is different in every city, and let each city say what they need. Pretty much every county has mandated masks, but like Ted was alluding to, we are a red state right now for the most part, and a lot of people don't believe in it. So when you go out, you see half a mix of people wearing masks and half don't. So as I like to put it, all the smart people are staying at home and ordering DoorDash and cleaning everything, while all the not so smart people are outside doing it. We've been home for, I think, since it started in mid-March, almost like a week after, it was really hit big. And our leaders at our organization said, we are not going back except for some super, super critical things, like when we have to handle paper and stuff, until at least spring. So our organization is keeping its team members in mind.
Yeah.
So you work for Quicken Loans, and now I think they have the Rocket Technology as a part of Quicken Loans, and I know you guys went IPO recently, and it's a pretty large corporation.
About 25,000 people, 30,000.
25,000 people. That's pretty big. And the one thing I want to really cover in this show is that pre-pandemic and now, what has changed from work-wise for mostly software developers and IT people, and how difficult or easy have you guys transitioned from working at work to working from home, and what are the challenges, and now what do you see going forward, like post-pandemic?
So I will say this, I joined QL a little bit over a year ago. And so I definitely have a lot more recent experience with companies that are not Quicken Loans. And to be really honest, I was really impressed with how they managed that transition. Living in Seattle, I was flying out to Detroit, which is where the corporate headquarters is. I was flying out there 50% of the time. And around the end of February, as I came back from a conference, I was talking with my leader, who is the CIO. And I said, hey, the pandemic thing seems to be growing. What do you think? Should I come out? And his comment was, yeah, let's hold off. Let's just wait, right? We don't, as much as we enjoy having out here, you don't need to be out here. And over the span of that following week, we went from, hey, the pandemic is coming, we're keeping an eye on it, to Friday morning, our CEO, Jay Farner, said, hey, as you leave the office, take stuff with you that you might need if you were to work at home. And by that evening, he said, don't come back to the office. And during that span of time, laptops, monitors, keyboards, and mice got shipped to everybody, not just the people in IT, but a significant percentage of the people that work for Quicken Loans are bankers who in many cases had never actually taken a laptop home. They had always just sat there on their desk. And so we went from everybody in the office to everybody not in the office over a span of about a week, maybe 2 weeks was when they started, getting all the orders ready. So literally thousands of laptops, thousands of other associated accessories and equipment shipped out, received, set up, the whole 9 yards, so that come Monday morning, we didn't miss a beat. And that includes, what's that?
Sorry, I was going to say that includes telephones, the full work for 23,000 people all in a week.
Yep. Yeah, it was huge.
Wow.
It was huge.
That's impressive. Wow.
It was absolutely impressive. And then we started getting into okay, now how are we going to work? And for all that people like to badmouth Microsoft Teams, it has really held up very, very well for a lot of us. It has its outages. It has its quirks. There are occasions when I sit down at my desk in the morning and Teams is we're wedged. You're going to have to re-sign in, quit it and restart. But then it's basically good for the rest of the day. And we're doing all of this over VPN too. So that I think adds to some of the complexities. But part of what we had to do is we had to adjust a little bit to how we work. Because QL was very much an in-person kind of culture, right? A lot of times it was, I'm just going to wander by so-and-so's desk. If I've got a question for Joe, I'll just wander by his desk, right? And say, hey, Joe, you got a moment, let's chat. And we just, blah, 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 and we go back our separate ways. Now, all of a sudden, you can kind of do that with Teams, but everybody got to a point where it was okay, we got to schedule all of the meetings all the time, right? And suddenly, particularly if you're a senior leader like Joe or myself, your calendar just starts looking like this giant wall of orange, right? Or whatever color you've chosen for your appointments. And that has definitely caused some of our team members a certain amount of angst because they were accustomed to really getting in, especially if you're a developer, get in, put the headphones on, code. I've got one meeting, but periodically people would come by and ask me questions. We'd answer for a little bit, blah, blah, blah. Now it all has to be done over Teams. And I think we're still kind of figuring out some of this protocol as to how we want to work collectively as an organization going forward. The key thing is we are going to figure out how to work collectively as an organization because at least within the technology space, we've made it clear we're not going back to the way things were. Those of us who are remote and not in Detroit now all of a sudden are on very much more of an even playing field with the people who are in Detroit. And I mean, I told my boss, I told my leader, right, the CIO, dude, if we go back to the old sort of AV setup where I have to dial into a conference bridge and I have to be put on a speakerphone in the center of a room and I can't hear anything because somebody next to the speakerphone is get in a side conversation with the person next to them, and they're laughing and dancing. Oh my God, yes, people playing with paper and fidget spinners. I'm going to fly out to Detroit and kill them all. Seriously, I'm not going back to that. And we're actually going through a process right now of rearranging the physical space so that, in fact, even if everybody wanted to be in the office, we can't. We're literally laying out the desks to create space, the necessary 6-foot social distancing. And that means that only about 50% of anybody in Rocket Technology will be physically able to be in the building at any moment in time. So this webcam and microphone and sitting in front of your laptop, this is going to be I think this is going to be the new normal for us going forward. Now, if I'm in the office, yeah, I'll get up, grab a couple of people, go out and grab some lunch, that sort of thing. But we are actively trying to move ourselves into a mindset of remote first, because the other thing that enables is not everybody has to be in Detroit. And if not everybody has to be in Detroit, then we can hire anybody anywhere, modulo time zones, he says, as he sits here in darkness.
And I think that's been one of the biggest things is, you're a big proponent and, clearly evidence of that is we had, prior to this, we were very Detroit first company. Let's try to get everyone in there. Remote development or remote team members were seen as, it's just them over there. Or we forgot to call Joe, or we forgot to bring Ted in. Now it's opened up where everyone kind of feels that pain. We're no longer the proverbial redheaded stepchild, but more so, it has allowed us to be able to bring on people from all over the U.S. We're able to hire people that just can't move, like Ted. Ted's got his roots in Seattle. There's no way we're going to say, Ted, the only way we're going to hire you is for you to move to Detroit. Same thing for me. So this has allowed us. Ted's team is a great example. Most of his team would be considered remote now because they're scattered throughout. We have people in Minneapolis. We have people in Cincinnati. We have people in
Portland, Cleveland, Columbus, Nashville, which is soon to be Atlanta, Ann Arbor. Two of the, what are we up to? 10, 11, some odd people on my team are actually in Detroit, right?
Oh, wow.
And so, we're not scheduling off sites. We're actually scheduling on sites. And depending upon where we are with travel coming up, if the travel opens up soon enough, we're going to do an on-site probably down in Phoenix, because nobody in Detroit is opposed to the idea of doing a trip down to Phoenix in February. That's that ability to open up the entire continent coast to coast for us. We still can't hire internationally because of some really, arcane rules around mortgage and finances and so forth. But, assuming we could figure out how to navigate some of those, there's no reason why we couldn't set up, engineering centers and hire people all over the world. Because once you go to this remote first mentality, once you've got the infrastructure in place and the protocol, the expectations in place, it just opens up so much and opens up so many. And Joe actually recruited me into QL. And, the very first words out of my mouth, both to him and to Brian, my leader, and to Sadie, the woman who was my recruiter during the process, first words to all of them were, I'm not leaving Seattle. That's if we want to have a conversation with that understood, I'm not leaving Seattle. And, obviously we made that work out. And in some respects, the pandemic has been good for us as a company to demonstrate to a lot of our senior leadership who are really thinking that remote work was really a perk to be given to only the most super productive. And this has really demonstrated to them that they don't need to have butts in seats to be able to, have team members that are productive. That's part of what company culture buys you. If you are really, you buy into. If you invest in your employees, they will invest back in you when times like this come across, and it's paid off in spades. We're doing some of the best business we've ever done.
Yeah, and Brian just posted comment on it. Brian, we all know Brian, worked for infrastructure for several years. He said
Hi, Brian.
he's been working for 10 years remotely. We all been working mostly remotely, right? Especially the, guys who are senior. But when it comes to the young guys, right? The guys who are just starting, right? The guys who are coming out of the college,
I'm going to stop you there, Mahesh.
Go
Not
ahead.
just the guys. Not just the guys. Let's
I
not
mean,
be
when I
sexist.
say guys, means everybody. Like,
Well, then
I
say
mean
gals.
the male or female.
Hey, gals, young gals.
Yeah,
All the young gals out there.
I mean, guys. I mean, include everybody, right? That doesn't really. Yeah, it's like recent graduates. They are coming out of college, or they just graduated. They just have 1 year, 2 year experience. Um, and they're not used to working from home. What advice you give them, right? So what should they be doing or preparing themselves for even interviewing, and then once hired, they work from home?
So to me, I get a lot of people that are like that. And prior to working at Quicken Loans, I never worked remote. I was always, as Ted put it, button seats. I was always, walking, going to my cubicle, punching a clock, blah, blah, blah. When I started working at QL, it was a real struggle because I was used to going into an office. I had to get up at 7 o'clock, shower, get in the car, go, and then, reverse the process. And it was different because mentally, you're physically there, you're away from your house. Nowadays, with a lot of people, especially if you're not ready for it. So like, as you can see, Ted has a dedicated spot in his office. I have a dedicated spot in my house. A lot of people don't have that, which is what the real struggle is. Not so much the discipline of working, but more so the discipline of knowing when you're working and when you're not. It's very easy for most people to, I don't have a commute. My day starts at 9 o'clock, but I can get in there at 9:30. Or you're sitting on your dining room table or kitchen table because you don't have a dedicated office space, and you're, trying to type away, but your wife, husband, girlfriend, boyfriend, significant other comes by and starts chatting with you. The key really to my success was to get both myself mentally prepared for it and the family mentally prepared for it. When I walk into this office in my room, starting at 9 o'clock, I am away. I am not physically here. You may see my body, but unless something's on fire in the house, I'm not here. So you got to get your surroundings around with it. And granted, they come in every once in a while. If my door is open, they know that I'm not in a meeting and I could be, quote unquote, bothered. But it's getting into that mindset that you may be physically present, but you're not really there, and getting into the habit of treating it as if you were going to commute. I still get up at the same time every day. I don't shower in the first thing. I shower normally at lunch because it's too damn early in the morning when I start my day. But because I start my day at 5:30 my time, and I'm not about to start the shower that early. So I get in the office and I start my day, and my family sees me when I come back out at 3 o'clock. The other thing to keep in mind is what a lot of people did, especially when we first got started, was they would stay at their desk all day long. They would come down, they'd wake up at, in my case, 5:30 and sitting there, and it's now 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. I'm still catching up on emails or working on that code. You have to treat it the same way you would treat the office. I got to get on the road by 5 o'clock, or I'm going to hit traffic on the 5:20, or I'm going to miss my train if I, don't leave the office by 5:34. Otherwise, you're just going to get burnt down. You're going to hate it. And that's not the purpose of, you should enjoy what you're doing, whether it be an engineer or a leader or just, an order taker. So you got to keep the mindset that your office, or at least your physical desk space, is just the quote unquote cubicle that you're used to. Come in, do your work, and then leave it.
Yeah. Part of the thing too to realize is, Brian's comment, I've been working from home for nearly 10 years. I love Brian. He and I, have had beers routinely at conferences and whatnot. But the fact of the matter is, working from home is very different from working from home during a pandemic. I mean, the surrounding context, it's not just about working from home. It's about working only from home. A lot of people, to me, this is why, I'm coining the phrase remote first as opposed to working from home, because really, whether, pandemic notwithstanding, there's no reason why somebody couldn't work from a Starbucks if they really chose to. Or, in my case, frequently I would go to, I'm not a big coffee fan, I prefer Diet Coke. So I would go to places like, a Wendy's or like a Denny's or something, where they have, Diet Coke refills. And so I'll just sit there and drink my Diet Coke all day long, order food and so forth to make sure the servers get tipped or whatnot. But, yeah, Brian, I miss Shane.
Don't we all?
Yeah, we both do. But the point is, the pandemic adds additional load, right? Now, sitting at your desk, sitting there for 12 hours straight, bad for you, right? You need to be able to get up, move around. And most of us, even though we had standing desks at the office, we didn't install standing desks at home, even if we had that dedicated space. And so I often make a point of, during meetings or whatnot, I'll get up and wander and pace my office a little bit, which for other people watching can actually be somewhat distracting, right? But otherwise otherwise I'm just sitting in this chair all day, and that's not good for you. And the fact is, the work-life balance, and actually I don't prefer to call it work-life, I prefer to call it work-home, because you're living in both cases. Your work-home balance is completely, it's vulnerable, right? It's vulnerable from the standpoint that there are distractions that will occur during the workday that normally you wouldn't have had to deal with. Because the other thing, working from home during a pandemic, guess where the rest of your family is, which normally wouldn't be a problem, right? Yep. Kids right now are trying to do the virtual schooling thing, and let's just call the spade a spade. That's been an absolute disaster, at least here in the US. Schools were not ready for it. Teachers were not trained for it. The kids were not prepped for it. It's been a mess. And the remote schooling thing, next time somebody starts talking to me about benefits of a remote education, I'm going to slap them upside the head and say, where were you in 2020? Because if it's just as good as an in-person education, you were not there when we needed you. The kids, in many cases, particularly in the US, we think of the school system as something of a daycare system. I mean, quite literally. Yes. Kid goes off to school, and I don't have to think about them for another 6 or 7 hours, right? They're out of, and I can focus on work. Here, you can't do that as much, right? And I can't even drop the kid off at daycare. I can't even take him to daycare after school, right? And so now I am in a position, my kids are grown, right? Joe knows, my boys are in their 20s. They both still live at home. One's in college. One actually works at Quicken Loans now. I don't have to worry about feeding them. I don't have to worry about changing diapers. I don't have to worry about making sure that they're actually on the video call for school. I don't have to worry about any of that stuff, right? I have tremendous amounts of respect and sympathy for the people who have had to deal with that. And frankly, remember the video clip about 2-3 years ago about the BBC reporter, reporting from South Korea, he's sitting in his home office, and his 4 or 5-year-old daughter comes strutting into the room, and his wife slams into the door trying to get her out. You know what? That's the reality of work from home. And some of the best meetings I've had actually opened by picking up pets and introducing the pets to each other over the video camera. The company is now in your home. And that's really what this is doing, is now we are carving out a part of our home to lease to the company in some respects. And it's a part of my home. And there are going to be things that happen in my home that the company wouldn't be aware of if I was physically on company property. So you know what? in exchange for the privilege of coming into my home, you're going to have to kind of deal with some of the things that happen in my house. Cat may wander in here and start meowing, and I may have to get up and close the door to kick her back out or feed her water. And you're just going to have to be okay with that, right?
Yeah,
I mean, part of
that's
that
definitely that's definitely has become a new normal now, that our kids and pets and families are part of our daily work calls, right?
Yeah.
I have a 3-year-old, and there's no way I tell her, but she doesn't understand the difference between, like, why can't she come walk in here?
If you can figure out how to get a 3-year-old to listen to you, man, forget webcasting.
No.
You've got a future as a parental consultant.
I cannot. Okay, so I'm not there. Yeah. So, well, good, great advice. So what we learn is, guys who are watching us this show,
Gals,
well, it's very important. Is that we're going to take a break in 2 minutes, but let me recap so far. We learned a lot. Very great advice from both of you. I think one is that we have to separate ourselves, mentally prepare that when you are in that room or at your desk. And I know some of the guys, they don't have their own room, they don't have their offices. People are joining us from different parts of India, right? In India, I lived in India. There's just 2 rooms and it's just open, and there's nothing called my room and your room. That's all it is. So one thing I think we can think of is mentally prepare when you sit on that desk that you are here for work, and hopefully you don't have any kids and pets joining you. Definitely, I think having a good quality microphones and headphones, they help. They are like noise reduction and all that.
And yet the three of us here are all doing it without such devices. I mean, we've got I'm using the microphone and the camera built into the Mac, right?
Yeah.
And I can do that because I have a separate space. But even with you've got headphones and microphone, if you've got somebody else who's working from home right behind you, there's still bleed over. We can hear their voice in some respects. The physical logistics are generally the easiest solved problems, right?
Yeah.
Company can buy you webcams, company can buy you microphones. It's all the other stuff. It's all the ancillary stuff. And we have, as much as we want to be able to say, find yourself a quality spot, dig in, hunker down, get your work done. For those of us who have that ability, for those of us who have that privilege, right, that's great. But we are the statistical minority. Most people have kids, pets, spouses, roommates, mailmen, UPS shows up at the door, DoorDash is showing up. Joe and I are on different schedules, so I may be eating lunch while he's not. He may be eating lunch while I'm not. You have to be compassionate. You have to be compassionate. If you cannot be compassionate, if you cannot put yourself into somebody else's shoes, then I have no sympathy for you, intern.
As we are talking, I see outside the gas guy came and his truck is making a lot of noise. And every time I have a meeting, the grass guy has to come the same 12 or 1 o'clock when I have meetings. It's so loud. All right. So, guys, we're going to take 2 minutes break. And guys and girls who are joining us, as you said, Ted, good point. I need to change my habit saying this guys, right?
Every time you say guys, I'm going to say gals.
In my personally, when I mind, it means everybody. So when we come back, we're going to talk about a few other things, like how do you motivate yourself while working from home, and how do you motivate your teammates, and what are new trends are being, changing when hiring people and working people. And you guys both hire people for yourself. You're working for you. So many of you guys around the, whole entire US in different cities. We will learn more and talk more on that. Anybody who's watching the show, please put your comment there. Any questions? Our goal is make sure we answer your questions. By the way, Brian also had another comment. He definitely missed that MVP Summit party. So we're going to talk about that in the second half of the show. We will be right back.
All right.
Here at Mindcracker, we create artificial, virtual, and mixed reality games and apps, voice-enabled skills and apps, and intelligent apps, and integrate AI with IoT products. We offer advisory services for innovations and startups. We provide cloud and code security and performance services. We also offer AI/ML blockchain development, consulting, and training. Just visit www.mindcracker.us to make your dreams into a reality. COVID makes us feel like this, and work from home like this. But what if work looked like this? With a leader like this, and a payday that feels like this. Learn how to change your mind and your mindset with the Growth Mindset Show every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern.
Hey guys! Can't believe we haven't seen each other since graduation in May. What's going on?
Not much. With the pandemic, I can't really do anything right now.
Me too. I mostly just stay at home, hang out with my dog, and watch the news.
I feel you. Have you guys been able to get jobs yet?
Funny that you ask. Gary and I actually have been working on something together.
Yeah, we came up with an idea for a startup that's an app that will help us stay active since we both have been sitting around so much during this quarantine.
That's genius. I could definitely use something like that. When are you guys launching it?
Well, that's the issue. We don't really know how to build it, so we're kind of stuck.
I know of this company that does startup advising if you guys are interested.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're called Mindcracker, and they'll help you validate your idea and connect you with angel investors and help you build everything from your product MVP to your technical team and even your go-to market planning and execution.
Wow, that's awesome. Do you know how we could get in touch with them?
Yeah, you can just visit their website, mindcracker.us.
That's awesome, May. Thanks. I'm excited to get started on this.
Of course. Good luck, guys, and let's talk soon.
Thanks, May.
All right, welcome back to the Growth Mindset Show. My name is Mahesh Chand. I have two guests here today, Joe, G, and Ted. Both are from Quicken Loans, senior leaders, have been community guys. We were talking about what has changed during COVID times. Anybody joining us from different parts, make sure, please post your comment. We will try to cover most of those comments. Ted, to continue our conversation, Brian commented that he definitely missed those MVP parties led by none other than you. So that's another part of this COVID, is right. We are creature of social, events, like especially the guys and girls who are MVPs and leaders and writers and speakers and authors. And so how this has changed for you, and how are you managing that social aspects of life, both of you, and what do you advise or suggest other people? And it's challenging for me myself because I'm usually every week somewhere having beer or with friends, and so
Yeah, I mean, you ask how we're managing. My answer is poorly, to be really blunt. I had a number of plans of conferences that I was going to go speak at during the summer. I was, for example, I was going to be in Krakow, Poland, to speak at an event out there that I absolutely enjoy called DevOps Poland. It's a more Java-leaning show, but my life is split both across the .NET and the Java world. But I had a couple other, events too, a bunch of the VS Live events, a couple of the other domestic US events I was going to speak at, and all of that just went. And one of the things for me personally is good number of my friends are other speakers, and we all live in different cities all over the United States, all over the world, and I don't get to see them. I don't get to hang out with them. We can do this, we can do the virtual thing, but it really has been very isolating for a large number of people. And, trying to recreate that in the virtual space is tricky. It's hard. In many cases, what we have discovered, I think, collectively as a species, is a lot of our human contact was very incidental and ad hoc. You would see people walking through the hallways and just catch up. Oh, hey, Joe, how's Dee doing? Hey, and I know you guys were planning to. Oh yeah, by the way, we should get together sometime. Next time the Cardinals are playing the Seahawks in Seattle or Arizona, we should fly and a lot of that kind of ad hoc conversation was where we got a lot of our communication, a lot of our conversation, and that's very hard to do. in this sort of remote world because you have to schedule something, and it feels a little weird. It almost feels a little creepy. It's like, hey, Joe, how about you and I schedule a meeting just to banter for 30 minutes? What do you think? Okay. That's kind of like asking somebody, hey, do you want to go to the bathroom together? Because that feels kind of at a little bit more intimate level. It's almost like we're scheduling a date.
Wait, I'm not supposed to do that?
Yeah, I've been meaning to tell you about that, though. I mean, we humans are social creatures. We really depend. A large part of our view of ourselves is built off of the view of other people. No matter how many times you say, I don't really care what other people think. If you really didn't care what other people think, you wouldn't tell me that you don't care what other people think, because you're trying to convince me that you don't care. So you do care about what I think. You care whether I think that you care whether other people think. At the end of the day, we're social creatures. All of us want that human connection. We want that human contact. And we haven't been able to do that during the pandemic. And it's driving us nuts. I mean, this is a large part of the reason why so many people do not want to wear masks. They do not want to socially distance. They want to have parties because they desperately crave. They couldn't necessarily put it in words, but they desperately crave that human contact. And, I mean, point blank, there's a guy on my team, and he has said, I'm a hugger. I can't wait for us to get back together and give all of you hugs.
Yes.
And I'm kind of in that same boat, right? I really, really want to go out and sit around a table and break bread and drink and wine or non-alcohol or whatever. I'm a social creature. We all are social creatures, and trying to find replacements, we're not quite there yet. Teams and Zoom and these other tools, they're helpful, but they don't replace in-person communication, in-person contact any more than the telephone did when it was first introduced.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think I was joking around with someone the other day. I think it was actually the same person that you were talking about, that when we do the MVP summit in person, that normally there's that extra day where people are traveling. I think they need to add an extra day, because the first day is just going to be people walking around hugging each other all day and catching up. And like you said, we're social creatures. I mean, when this first started, Mahesh had the C# Corner conference that was supposed to happen, I think, like 2 weeks into this, where we were looking, hey, am I canceling our flights, or what are we going to have? And to me, the biggest thing has been the meeting people. I've gone, like you said, you've obviously flown a lot or seen a lot more cities than I have, but I was supposed to go to Bulgaria this year, or supposed to go to India again this year, France, and a couple other places. And it's not so much the destinations; those are always cool, but it's meeting all the people and getting to hang out. And I have a lot of good people that I talk to on a regular basis now that I've met, just from doing this.
Yeah.
But on the plus side, it has helped in a couple of other things. So, I've been expanding my presence online by doing streaming. And for me, that's helped practice just my public speaking in general. So I'm not, in theory, speaking in front of 200 people for the first time. I'm perfecting the craft, so to speak, from a public speaker standpoint. So I look at it that way. It's just a temporary pause until we hopefully get back to, real in-person events where we can see each other and hang out. Because, honestly, if those in-person events would happen, I would have never met Ted. Some might say that's a good thing. I would consider that a bad thing.
No, I mean, I agree. Like most of our, like my network, I'm sure same as yours, we meet at either MVP summit or conference in usual group. That's how we become friends. Because other thing for me as these conferences and events was to take like a mental break from the routine, right? And then also energize enough, go back entire year to work enough and go, wait for the next MVP summit or conference and so on and so forth.
Well,
So
even beyond the mental break, because I think that calling it a mental break reinforces the idea that somehow conferences are a vacation, and they're really not. I mean, you get more mentally exhausted going to a conference than you do at your day-to-day job. And part of that is because you are breaking down some of the internal barriers that you have. It's a concept known as groupthink, right? When you're like working as part of the same team for a period of time, all of you tend to start thinking the same way because you've come up with a solution to a problem that seems to be working, because if it wasn't working, you'd have changed it by now. So you all start thinking along the same lines, right? So whenever you run into a particular scenario, particularly if you're a software engineer, the first solution is, oh, we got to build a website, we got to build a database, right? We focus on tools because that's what we do. And the opportunity to go to a conference there, the so-called hallway track, yeah, the presentations are great. And I say that as a presenter, don't get me wrong, right? The presentations are not really the reason you go to a conference. What you really go for is the hallway track. Because part of what you're looking to do, and this is a thing that I have frequently told my students when I was teaching at the University of Washington, part of what you are really looking to do is to create your tribe. You create the group of people, your peer group, that you can feel comfortable bouncing ideas off of and saying, hey, has anybody ever heard of this programming language Elixir? What's up with that? Why are people getting really excited about that? Should I study Ruby? What do you guys think? If is Python the only way to do machine learning? Or all these questions you're going to have, particularly when you're first getting started in your career, and having that peer group, having that tribe is absolutely crucial. And you can build your tribe out of your colleagues at work. But then what happens when you leave that workplace? Because let's be honest, you're going to leave at some point. And then what do? You have to build your tribe all from scratch again. And the internets and these kinds of conversations, what you've been doing with C# Corner Online, this is an opportunity for people to build that peer group that doesn't have to be physically in the same place. Conferences are another such opportunity. You go in, you sit down, you see, Joe or myself talking on something, blah, 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 blah. You walk out and you go, man, I wonder if that's something that you could actually use if you're doing Java instead of .NET. And the person next to you goes, oh yeah, we've done that for years over in the Java space. And you're like, really? Talk to me more. You're learning a bunch of things as you're walking in the hallway from one thing to the next. The hallway track is really important. You get opportunities to walk up and talk to the so-called experts, myself, Joe, and anybody else. But part of the thing to understand is the people around you are in some cases more important than us, because the people around you will be in similar situations. They will have experiences, etc. When I deliver a talk, I'm usually delivering it context-free, right? Hey, I'm going to be here today to talk to you about some source generators in C#. And I don't know your place of business. I don't know the problems you're trying to solve, et cetera, et cetera. Don't take my advice blindly. The people sitting around you, in many cases, are going to be in context very similar to your own. And build off of what they're hearing. If they've done it, if they've talked about it, if they tried it and abandoned it, that's all hugely valuable. And you want to make those connections. You want to make those feelers, so that then you can build up and avoid getting channeled in that groupthink and always thinking that C# is the answer.
So that brings to my new question, right? This is great. So, networking, we know that networking is so important, especially in IT. It's just like, they say there's data shows that 92% of hiring is actually done through who you know, right? Through the connections and relationships. So
I'll point back to Joe. That's how I got QL.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. That's how you get, because my question is now the young guys or girls who are watching us. This is going to change me. I need to come up with a new word. Young folks who are watching us.
Folks works.
How do you in this? I see this. This is going to go like remote work is going to grow now. How do you? What's your suggestion to them? How should they network, build their professional network and relationships while they are trying to build their career? What are some tips you can give them? Say, do these things while you're working from home and also grow your network.
I think the easiest thing to do is get out there. I mean, right now and I mean get out there as in...
You mean virtually?
virtually get out there, not get out there as an outside. There are so many different ways that we communicate now. Like I said, I started streaming 6 months ago. Get out there, look at that, see how other people are doing things, interact. I mean, there's Twitter, there's Instagram, there's Snapchat, there's TikTok, there's Twitch. There's so many different ways where people are just, hey, I'm here, come hang out, be interactive. Just don't be, I can't see the stats here, but I'm guessing there's 800-900 people watching this right now, and 4 people in the last 10 minutes have said anything. Be interactive. Start the conversation. Don't make Facebook, Twitter, whatever you're watching, or don't be a spectator. Be an active participant. That's how you start building it. I've met a lot of people that I haven't physically seen at conferences that I don't even know what they look like outside of their avatar, because they interacted with me or I interacted with them on Facebook or Twitter. Put yourself out there. Yeah. Worst comes to worst, you can always, turn it off or block the person. Yeah.
Well, you can always, delete the account, uninstall Twitter or Facebook or what have you. Yeah. And even once we get out of this pandemic lockdown, don't ignore the in-person events. Go to local user groups. If you don't have a local user group, start one, right? You can use the internet for reach, but there's no reason why you have to stop with just the internet. Getting out, meeting people, talking to people. The same thing is true at work, right? Now, here, really to do it effectively, it helps if the business has some support structures in place. So one of the things that I'm working on building inside of Quicken Loans is a formal mentorship program. So that if you are a young developer, like my son, who is interested in improving their skills in, one of a bunch of these different categories, they can put themselves into some kind of system, whether it's an online system or whether it's just a human system, right? Just you got some program manager who's got a notebook and they're writing down names here on the left of people who want mentoring, the topics they're interested in, and then over here on the right, you've got a list of all the names of people who can provide mentoring in those topics. That would work just as well. Even within, in some cases, we've had some teams and some trains inside of QL who have stood up informal mentoring programs within their scoped unit of work, right? If you're a team leader, you can certainly do that. You can say, hey, here's the new person on the team. We're going to pair them with this more senior person on the team. Go out to lunch once a month. Go out to lunch once a week. Whatever cadence works well for your business. The company, I think, has a responsibility to try to help facilitate some of that. But at the end of the day, really the benefit is for you and for the senior, by the way. Mentorship is definitely a two-way street. So, don't wait for the company to provide it. Advocate for yourself. Self-advocacy is one of the most critical skills that anybody new to their career can learn. If you're not getting something you need, stand up and say, I'm not getting something I need. How can I figure that out? I guarantee you that if you talk to your boss, your leader, your manager, whatever term you use for them, you talk to your teammates, you talk to some of the people in other teams. If you talk to any of those 3 groups and say, I'm really looking for somebody to help me learn more about, somebody will say, yeah, I would love to meet with you. I would love to hang out and chat and yada, yada, yada. And boom, right? At least for you, problem solved, at least temporarily. Repeat that every so often. Make sure you pay it forward to the people who are also looking for it. And lo and behold, you've started to create an informal mentoring system inside the company. And good things can happen from there.
Great, definitely, yeah, definitely go out there, ask questions and ask help. There's a lot of people are willing to help. So that brings to my another question, right? So you hire, in your team you hire a bunch of people, and you still continue to hiring it. What trends are you seeing at your work, or what are you like adopting new technologies, especially in say .NET, Microsoft, or Java, or these latest software trends? What do you see now? Like, what are you hiring now? What kind of people? And what do you see trends going forward? What will you be hiring more? I know cloud is growing. I know, a lot of machine learning is growing, automation is growing, and so on and so forth.
So it's interesting because when you ask that question, you go straight to the technical skills.
Yep.
Frankly, I'm not so concerned about the technical skills, right? When
Okay.
I'm looking
Yep.
to hire somebody, I'm looking for people to have three qualities. They are hungry, they are humble, and they are smart. And all of those technical skills can fall into that smart category, but you'll notice that's only one of three. And in many cases, being hungry and humble, that humility is often what allows people to become smart. Because if I hire somebody who is just smart, right, and they're not hungry, in terms of doing better, in terms of ambition, et cetera, and they're not humble, right? Smart without humble is arrogance. And in many cases, those kinds of people can destroy a team. So hungry, humble, and smart is what I'm looking for, because truthfully, everything else can be taught, right?
Well said, very well said. And that's where I think we miss a lot of things is, we don't look for that humble part. I see a lot of people, they're super smart and they're on Twitter, they go and they're just so arrogant. They're talking about this and that and all. So I kind of agree with you, Joe. You want to add something for, I know you are on the same team, so I'm sure you align with what Ted just said.
I
That's
mean,
great.
yeah, that's one of the reasons why, we brought Ted on and, it's part of our tech culture because he shares the same beliefs. But, for the most part at QL, that's our philosophy. Having certain technical skills gets you semi in the door. But what we hire for is that culture fit, that, you're smart, you're humble, you're honest, things like that, because you can learn the tech stack. I mean, if you have the engineering abilities, you can learn whether it's Java, .NET, Erlang, Elixir. That stuff can be learned, but some of the soft skills is what's really important, which is why I say go out there, put yourself out there, which is a really hard thing to do for a lot of engineers, because a lot of engineers are introverts by nature. It's just the way that our mind works. So you get a couple like us that are more the extroverts. Yes.
So that's great. So, I mean,
Brian's right, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, so Brian, we need to get Brian on this show next. Maybe next time I'll reach out to you, Brian. We definitely need you on the show. A lot of good advice. So we have a few more minutes to go, and I think one thing, one question a lot of these, young developers they ask is like, I want to change my career. What should I learn? I know you want hungry. That's great. You have to have hungry. You have to be humble. But to get you to that level, even to interview, right, you have to have certain things on your resume before you still need to say, you know what, we are hiring a 3 years 4 or 5 years experience programmer who should have done these, right? Or you don't care if
Well,
yes, no, I mean, what can you also add to that? Because that's the question. A lot of we get this question a lot. Oh, I want to switch my career. What should I learn? Should I learn cloud? Should I learn this?
well, in many respects, what people are often looking for is, what is that magic pill? What is that secret sauce? What is the one true thing I need to know in order to get a job? And the funny thing is, if you want to get a job as a software developer, you have to know how to develop software, right? I mean, in the same way that if I wanted a job as an electrician, I need to know how to wire things, and if I want a job as a plumber, I need to know how to plumb things. But within that, I mean, what speaks to you? Go learn any of them. You want to go learn Python first? Go learn Python. There's a ton of Python jobs out there. You want to go learn JavaScript? Go learn JavaScript, right? In many cases, what people are doing is they're fixating on what is the perfect answer. And the fact of the matter is there is no perfect answer. There is no one skill that everybody will hire that if you have it, they'll ignore everything else. Don't get me wrong. I have a tremendous amount of sympathy for anybody who's trying to get their first technical job, right? And even, within Quicken Loans, right, we recognize that a lot of people want to try to make that sort of career shift. We actually have a program internally. Twice a year, we run an internal boot camp called Dev Build, where people who are non-technical, and I really hate using that phrase. In other words, people who are not software developers, can go learn things like C#, ASP.NET, some JavaScript, TypeScript, Angular, etc. They spend like 15 weeks taking classes, and when they graduate, they're guaranteed a position somewhere inside of the family of companies, right? And that's part of how we are staffing up the next generation. Because this is the thing I think a lot of companies don't quite understand. All these companies are standing up and saying, we want senior full stack engineers. Okay, first of all, full stack, that's a myth. That's a myth. There is nobody who is full stack. Teams can be full stack, but people are not. What you're asking for when you say you want a full stack engineer is you want a cog. You want a generic piece that you can plug anywhere, because you as a manager, you don't want to have to think hard about how your team works together. And if somebody leaves, you can just plug in a new one. That's laziness on the part of the manager, truthfully. I'm very, very adamant about this. There is no such thing as a full stack engineer. Everybody brings different strengths and weaknesses, right? We've often talked about people being T-shaped. You've got some breadth and you've got some depth, right? The thing of it is, on a given team, particularly if we want to create some of these, sort of, independent, full feature, full stack teams, you need somebody who's really good at UI. You need somebody who's really good at middleware. You need somebody who's really good at database. Building those skills, hiring people for those skills, that's hard work. Companies, though, right now, because they see hiring as a necessary evil, they're like, let's just do whatever the minimum we need to do in order to find people to bring bodies in the door. We'll say senior full stack engineer, so we don't have to invest too much. They can just hit the ground running. Nobody ever hits the ground running. It takes you at least 6 months to figure out the dynamics on your team, the dynamics around your team, to figure out the software project you're building. All of that stuff takes time. Most companies are not spending any amount of time thinking about the next generation of developers, and that's why they are constantly fighting and poaching with all these other companies for this limited collection of senior software engineers. Don't go looking for the senior engineers, because trying to suck water out of a dry well generally only brings up mud. Build them. Build them. Commit to having 20% of your workforce be associate level. And if you're not willing to commit to 20% of your workforce, 20% of your software development force, or your data intelligence force, or your IT support force, if you're not willing to commit to 20% of them being juniors with 0 years of experience, don't cry to me about you can't find people, because they're there, they're out there, they're hungry. And the people that you give their first job to will be the most loyal people you have, particularly if you invest in them. Remember what I started at the start of this conversation? QL has spent a tremendous amount of time over the last 35 years investing in the culture of the company, investing in its employees, doing the right thing by its people. And that paid off in spades for us when we had to ask them to give us a part of their home and to let us into their lives. And if your company is willing to invest in people, you will get that kind of investment paid off tenfold. But you got to be willing to invest. And if you're not willing to invest, don't cry to me, Argentina.
No, that's well said. That's well said. And I think that was my last question for the show was how, you are Joe told me you're responsible for building a culture within the company. And looks like that's where you are doing and your company is doing, and they are reinvesting in their own kind of families, like people, your people who are working for you becomes like a family.
To be clear, QL had a very, very strong company culture long before I joined. Dan Gilbert, the founder, has done an amazing job in terms of communicating the philosophies of how he wants to run the business. What I'm doing in many cases is figuring out how to take some of those things and extend them deeper inside of technology. But more importantly, the people who work for me in many cases are doing the things that other people in technology are passionate about, but aren't paid to do, right? Honestly, Joe could come over and take over tech culture and run it just as well or better than I, because he's got a lot of those same kinds of passions. But at the end of the day, he's responsible for a team of software developers who deliver software. That's where they have to go. You can tell what a company values by where they spend their most precious resource, which is to say headcount. If the software company actually values its people, it will invest headcount in growing those people. If the software company only sees people as cogs in a machine, they need to learn at home. They're not allowed to go to conferences. They can't take time during the day to read a book. They don't have any 20% focus time. Hackathons, nope, not here. We need you to work. That tells me you treat your people like machines, like cogs, and don't be surprised. If you treat people like commodities, you will discover very quickly that that reputation gets around and you won't be able to get the high quality commodities anymore. Just kind of how that works. Invest in your people, it will be repaid.
Well said. Well said. So, any last word, Joe, from you before we close the show?
Ted said most of it. One thing I would add is, if you're looking for that one technology, like Ted said, it isn't there. Find what you're passionate about. If you're passionate about something, that people will see that and will see that growth in you. So if you're passionate about Python or .NET is your thing or Java is your thing, work on that. That'll get you in the door, and that will show people your career path or how you learn, and that will help get you in that door.
How do you demonstrate your hunger, right?
Yep.
That's really what, when people talk about passion, what we're really talking about is hunger, right? How do you demonstrate that you want this? It can be hard for some people, no question. Some people are in very different situations than Joe and myself in terms of, supportive spouse and I have free time, et cetera. If you're a single parent, trying to do the coding at home can be a ridiculously difficult thing to do. You get it. Can you find other ways to demonstrate that hunger? And in some cases, that hunger is, I am willing to, I'm willing to interview repeatedly until I find somebody who's willing to give me that opportunity. But the fact of the matter is, companies need to open their eyes to the fact that those people are out there. And right now you're filtering them out because you're saying 5 years C# on the job description. And when you do that, lots of people are now selected out or filtered out by your HR department. Open your mind, open your heart, open it up to the idea of people who don't have that formal experience, but have been, tinkering with games for the last 10 years and actually installed Unity and built a couple of games. Ask them beyond those stock questions. Don't look for those tried and true marks of success like a degree. I'll be honest with everybody on this call. My degree is not in computer science. My degree is in international relations. My international relations degree has prepared me far better for a career in this industry than a CS degree does. But I spent the first 5 years justifying my international relations degree. That was seen as a negative. And what I learned when I took a couple of CS courses in university was I learned about algorithms. Let me ask you how many times I've actually had to puzzle out an algorithm on the job. Interview for what you actually need the people to do, not what was used to interview you in the past.
Well said. Well said. So both of you, I think we learn a lot. I learned a lot today, frankly speaking, from this show. And I think what we can say now is to have a new quote is, as Steve Jobs said, stay hungry, stay foolish. Here we can say you don't need to be smart as long as you stay hungry and stay humble. And there are plenty of jobs for you.
Yeah. Yep.
So
the more you know you don't know. You know who told me that? Bjarne Stroustrup, the guy who invented C++.
Well said. Well said. So both of you, thank you so much for coming. I know it's early, and Ted, really appreciate you coming on the show. Joe, again, you are helping us a lot during this pandemic, and other guys and girls, folks. I need to change my word on that. Thank you so much, and you both have safe weekend and time ahead. Looks like we have vaccine here coming soon. Hopefully soon things will get better, and we'll probably meet in person. Can't wait.
Someday.
All right.
Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Girls.
Bye-bye.